Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I am extremely excited today. This dude that's about to be on is super passionate. Energy can shift a room, and I think that's so important, energy. And this guy's information just on building out consumer journey, marketing, branding, has an amazing podcast himself. Without further ado, George, welcome, man. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh man, I'm stoked to be here, man. I'm ready. Round two. How'd you mind? Let's do this. I want many more.
We are going to, so if you're listening to this, we're going to have it in person. When I told George his energy is too infectious not to have this guy in the studio. We have to do it. So we're going to get him in the studio. I would definitely say before the end of 23 is my goal to make that happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. I think we're going to do some other things together too, in our field. But dude, so for people watching, they're like, who the hell is George Bryant, right? Give us a quick little rundown of how you would elevator pitch yourself.
Yeah. So here's the best thing. I'm your most valuable liability. I am your most valuable liability. At the end of the day, that's what it is. But I have an obsession with helping people who genuinely care about making profit and money on the backside of helping people achieve their goals and their results. And I do it at a level through customer journey, marketing, mindset, systems, and processes to create world-class customer journeys that turn people's businesses into everything of their dreams, and they're aligned and they can scale it. And, in the process, I've taken 2 companies to $1 billion, over 100 into the 9-figure range. I own, 6 or 7 of my own, doing 7 and 8 figures that I'm either on the board advised or started on my own. And so now I'm just obsessed with helping everybody and teaching them and getting it into the world. And hey, when we win, you win. Let's do this. And so that's the biggest elevator pitch I could describe. And everyone's yeah. I'm yeah. So it's like an experience, right? Just pink boots, tattoos, lots of passion about marketing, and I will make it work. And I'll also jump in the mud and do it with you.
And the calves, man. Let's not forget those calves, dude. Those calves.
I worked hard for my calves. I work hard. And here's the funniest thing, bro. You'll appreciate this more than anybody. I'll go keynote for 1,500 people and change everybody's businesses. And the first question from every dude's mouth is bro, how'd you get calves like that? And my response is the same every time. And I'm if I was training in the gym, would you come ask me the same question? He's I would. I'm my answer would have been because I'm training instead of asking other people how to train.
You're putting in the work.
And I'm just work on your calves. Just work on them.
So I want to ask you a question. So we're going to do some speed round stuff.
I love it.
Do you have a hero?
I do. My hero is the picture of the man that I painted myself that I want to become. And
who is that guy?
He's the guy for me now, having a son and a daughter, and she's 18. It's a guy that realizes that every ounce of my existence is to create a loving environment, to inspire my children to love people for the right reasons, to give back, to be a service, to just literally live from a place of true love, and realize that every ounce of my story and the pain and the trauma and the combat and the brain injuries and the losing the leg, every ounce of it was there to help me find more depth and capacity to love people. And I'm at a point in my life where I've achieved everything I ever set out to achieve, and I had everything I ever wanted, and I got rid of it just to have more time with people. And that could be my friends, my family, people like this, doing podcasts in person.
Right.
I just crave human relationships, and that man to me is the most important man in the world, and it represents everything that I want to leave as a legacy.
I love that, man. That's so beautiful. And as I shared with you on your podcast, I just had my first child, so I get that wanting, again, there's nothing more important than your kin and them. And one of these things, you remember me telling you on a podcast, but when I was 17, I started the business. I would always ask advice to people who were at the places that I wanted to be, right, in their careers. And so same thing with parenthood, marriage, everything in my life. When I'm new at something, I love asking those questions.
Yep.
And, one of the things that's so interesting is one of the things I asked a nurse when I was in the hospital. She told me she has 5 kids. She's busy. She's all this. She's actually the one that helped birth, my son. And I said to her, "What's your advice for us for parenting?" And dude, she literally broke my brain. I was so grateful I asked her. And she goes, "Kids will rarely ever listen to what you say, but they'll always watch what you do. So
Yep.
be a good role model." And so if you're a parent out there listening, I think that's huge. Again, talk is cheap, right?
And I have a speed answer for 1A, because I think it's important to understand how I painted the picture of that man.
Right.
And it was by borrowing people's superpowers that they were masters of. And most of those people are my clients and people that we work with and teachers that I find, like John Wineland or Thich Nhat Hanh, but primarily people like you.
Right.
And people who I podcast with and customers that I meet and people that I meet at events and the ones that DM me on Instagram, and then I go follow their content and I see how they're leading their family and it inspires me to change mine. And then I borrow parts of it. And like, that's the pieces that I put together. Like it's almost like, for me, I feel like I created my business to be an environment that molded me, to hold me accountable to be that man. And the people that I see and that we interact with just help keep that coming in.
I love that, man. That's powerful. That's beautiful. And, one of the things I remember, I think I heard like Matthew McConaughey said something like, my who I look up to is me in 10 years. Right.
Yep. Green
light. The first time I heard him say something similar to that. And I was like, damn, like that's interesting. And I think not enough people think that way that you think, that Matthew McConaughey thinks and other thought leaders that think about, you are the person in this life that is moving you forward, that is going to create the memories, get through the bad times, be there for support. So it's really cool that you're looking at yourself that way and having that mindset.
Well, I think too, it's funny. I even have a model for this, Simon Bowen and I, who's an absolute genius, by the way. I need to make an intro for you to interview this guy.
Yeah,
but
please.
The genius of the geniuses. But the thing is like, I'm not a thought leader, right? And the escalation of the game is somebody becomes a vendor and then they become a thought leader, right? And then they become everybody's hero, wanting to become their sage, but instead not knowing how to create the tools and the simplicity to put them into practice. And like, for me, I'm like, I don't have your answer whatsoever. My job is that my truth and my integrity and my example might crack a door and might create a sliver of hope, and then you might go fill in a tool. And I think it's like really, really important, because like I feel like I know nothing and I learn more and more every day. And the more I learn, the more I feel like less I know. And it's this really interesting paradox. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
Holy moly. And it's a beautiful place to be too.
I was listening to this thing on that topic. If you guys are listening here, one of the things I always like to just share is like, with if you've listened before, that my anxiety journey has been a roller coaster pretty much my whole life. And dude, I never seen that picture of the book that I got to send it to you today. I will send it to you today. I'm so sorry about that. I'm writing that down.
All right, I was going to remind you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, one of the things I heard recently, from one of these, because I have spiritual motivation and I have obviously business and then personal. And in my spiritual motivation, I was listening to this gentleman, this pastor, Stephen Furtick, and this dude just goes off. And he was talking about how, he goes, if anybody out there feels like by the age you're at, you should have already figured your shit out and like not be in these same things you're feeling, whether it's anxiety, depression, or, your same old life things that keep showing up. And he was just sharing how, the interesting thing about life and just the way that life works is that, whether you believe in God or the universe or nothing, right? It's like life is going to keep bringing up these issues and challenges because you didn't fix it.
Yeah.
You didn't fix it. You didn't take it on head on.
Yep.
So, with that said, whatever you guys are facing out there, I think one of the things we always try to do is figure out the shortcut or just bypass it. And then it keeps showing up for us. It keeps showing up for us. It keeps showing up for us. We're frustrated and we're anxious.
I have the most incredible coaching book that will take everybody less than 5 minutes to read that fixes this. I'm not joking.
Dude, what is it?
It's called A Bear Through the Woods. And I'm going to read the book to you right now. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You must go through it. And it's repeated to the story of a boy going through the woods with a bear on how to deal with life. And that is the only answer. And what I find, and that what used to be a challenge for me, and there's an incredible book that everybody should read by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. What I find and I found is that when I was stuck with those moments and it kept hitting me, I was more focused on how hard it was and how insurmountable it was in front, because the gain looked so big, instead of looking backwards at the gap. I mean, at the gap ahead was so big, instead of looking backwards at the gain that I had made. I'm like, wow, look where I've come from. Oh, I learned this lesson. Oh, that's the part I missed. And that's where the solutions come from. And that book kind of sucks the oxygen out, because it helps you frame certain things like that to create that relief, right? And then we talked about this when you were on my show, like how you talked about anxiety and adrenaline.
Yep.
It's just needing somewhere to go. And if you put it in, if you put it into the things that work, that helped you gain to where you are, it will help create more of that momentum instead of putting it into the gap and what feels like a big hole.
Dude, loving that.
I love it. I love it. You got hearts in here. Yes, I'm here for the hearts, bro.
So we're gonna heart that one more time, but love that, and that's so fire. So we're when I'm with my guy George here, we just get right into it. So now I have another question for you. So you have, let's give it less than a minute, right?
Yep.
And you can only give away 3 things, obviously verbally.
Yep.
To your 2 kids, and then that's it, right? We're giving a quick little exercise here, okay? You can only tell them. So let's go through those 3 things, right? What would be the book you would give them when it comes to them personally developing, or a book that made such impact for you that you're like, they have to read this. This is important. At
their current age or at when they become an adult?
I would say at their current age.
Oh man. Well, okay. Well, that's easy because my daughter is 18.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So you know what? No, you know what? Actually, we're gonna rephrase this. This is the first time I'm doing this one. I'm switching it up today. So we're gonna say when they're both obviously in different areas. But so, how old's your youngest?
Well, he's 7, but I don't know any books younger than like a.
Well, so no, I was gonna say they both get this piece of information.
Yeah.
When they both reach the age of 21.
Oh my God. Yes. This is the best question you could ask.
Okay. So book.
Yep.
Okay. Second would be what you want them to know that you feel like maybe they don't know when it comes to you. And then thirdly, how you would tell, like, what advice would you give them on forgiving other people? And so, like, the way that it would be frameworked is like, hey, Dad, there's somebody I really can't forgive, or I'm struggling with it. What would be your advice? So those 3 things.
I got you. So number 1, the book would be Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends Upon It by Camille Ravikant.
Okay.
Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends Upon It by Camille Ravikant. Okay. And the thing that I would want my kids to know about me when they both turn 21 is that I'm sorry for spending most of their childhood building things for the wrong reasons because I didn't know. And I eventually found it, and I thank them for having grace and love and allowing me in my journey to now spend time with them and have the impact and the meaning that I always wanted to have.
And real quick on that point though, dude, I feel like for entrepreneurs, this is such a real tough topic. Yes. And there's almost every successful entrepreneur that I know, like has that like, fuck, I wasn't with my kids enough, or I was out there in the world, and so they got the Amex and whatever they wanted. Like that's how I was like making sure they still liked me and cared about me or whatever.
Yeah.
I knew that I loved them. You know, what would you say to somebody who is an early entrepreneur?
Yeah.
That is having or has a kid, but they're still early in and the kid's young.
Yeah. So here, I'd say the same thing to everybody, no matter how young or old the kid is. So the first thing is that you can either make your own mistake or you can learn, but every single person that you hear talks about this at some experience or moment lost it all. And the only pieces that were left were the ones that didn't need any of that other stuff in the first place. And when you find that and feel that, it never leaves you.
Dude, that's
and then
so deep.
Then you just end up having a relationship with it. But I can tell you what it looks like in every stage. Number one is that the moment you become aware of it, the guilt and shame of it feels so heavy that it actually prevents you from instantly fixing it. And the only way to instantly fix it is to just in that moment bring it back into integrity. And there's no making up. There's no putting wood filler in the holes. The holes in the fence are there.
Yeah.
And they're going to be there. So you just acknowledge that they're there and you make a plan to bring things into alignment, which brings me to the third part. And the biggest mistake is most people build their business and become a slave to it rather than building their business around themselves and their lives and their priorities and having the discipline to protect it, because that's truly the path to freedom. And that means irregardless of no matter which way you convince yourself that it's 9 p.m. and you have to get on Instagram and you have to respond, the moment you choose not to and prioritize laying in bed with your kids and reading that book, you don't realize it, but you've already started to change your behaviors and beliefs, and the results will follow. But you have to consistently re-choose it every single time to force the compression, to create the space, to allow the new things to show up. And so that is the best piece of tactical advice that I would have given myself.
Dude, that is so helpful. And I think so many entrepreneurs that are listening to that will definitely understand that and hopefully take it into their life. Because I think before COVID, man, and I'm sure a lot of people can attest to this, I was always out, and I didn't have any kids at that point, but you know, it was me and my wife. And I at the time, I was with my wife for a couple of years. And long story short, rarely saw my wife. I was always out. We had dinners. Like everyone used to like be like, oh, do you guys want to go get dinner? Like we'll do a date night and we'll like all double date and we'll go like to a place. What time? Like, and my wife would be like, what time do you guys want to go? Oh, at like 7:30. And she's like, well, John doesn't get home till like 9:30. So I can't go that early. Everyone's like, I'm not going. So we never did that stuff in the beginning until the weekends because I was always busy. COVID happens. I'm like with my wife all the time, like, dude, fuck this shit. Like, and having a kid, I can't even imagine. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And then the third one I got, don't worry. The third one I got.
Hit me with it.
And the third one would be that every time we're triggered or caused pain or upset or angry, and it's about the other person, it's an invitation for us to heal the part of ourself that was triggered.
Boom. Dude, you're fucking killing it. I'm throwing all the emojis out today. I'm breaking the board here with this guy today. And I'm not surprised, obviously. And again, if you're listening to this and you have a podcast, you're gonna connect with George later because this guy's the guy to have on your pod. This guy's fucking awesome. But thank you for that, dude. And you know what? I think the part that I love the most about you and just your energy and your story is that like you can tell that a lot of the stuff that you talk about on your own pod or when you're on other pods is like experience things, right? Not just like you live in a world now on Instagram where everyone just like, you know, downloads Tony Robbins, what he says, or downloads Gary Vee and then just go run and recycle it. And that's fine. If it motivates somebody, it's great. But like when somebody has never gone through, you know, the woods, right, and the jungle and got bit a couple times and, you know, and got lost and whatever, you know, I respect seasoned, experienced people. I don't respect people who haven't gone, you know, gotten scars here or whatever. So I love that about you, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
So we got a couple minutes left here. Who inspires you right now out there from a personal development perspective?
Yeah, so this is going to be a really interesting answer, and no one's ever asked me this. So Courtney Dahlwater, the
Okay.
ultra marathoner.
Mm.
And this woman is literally long basketball shorts, t-shirt, former school teacher who just runs and came out of nowhere. And I mean, literally has dominated and set every record. And she talks about how it's her journey and path to herself and how she'll hallucinate on runs and meet all of her shadows. And she just is a teddy bear version of David Goggins.
Wow.
And what I'm inspired by is people who are willing to go to depths and the edges of themselves only through like true pure intentions for just to work and discover parts of themselves that they don't even realize, that because they're not out to get documented and they're not out to get famous, but the world gets to see the example. And like those people inspire me to stretch how I think I can commit to things, or how I think I can show up, or what I think is possible. And I just resonate so deeply with that, in like the ability to take that and like take that same mindset into being a father, or take that same mindset into being an entrepreneur, or caring about my clients with the same level of like determination and commitment that it would take to not sleep for 5 days and run 200 miles and set the record and beat the men and the women by like 11 hours.
Wow.
And then literally the years of prep to go into that, and the relationship that you have to have with yourself. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, my flight was delayed. I can't get on a meeting right now. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also love to be challenged to realize that if I really think there's a problem and I have all this opportunity showing up in front of me, it's not that there's a problem. It's that I'm lying to myself and not having a healthy relationship with how I want to show up or what I'm trying to achieve. And that's what creates the problem from earlier in the first place, is realizing that you think you want all of those things, but then lifestyle creep takes in and you spend more time and stress managing them. And they take you away from the things that you really wanted, because you haven't acknowledged that you were never afraid of failure or petrified of success, because success meant none of that shit mattered anymore. And you didn't have a story to tell. You had to paint a new one every day, right? Like that's the dance. Like that's the game.
Right.
And that's the part that like you find your way there either way. It's either through a series of flat tires, a massive blowout, or seeing enough people do it that you're like, holy shit. If I start with what matters and I build my business around my values and my principles, and I treat everybody, my customers and my clients and my team the same, it's going to hold me accountable, and my life by default is going to win, because I'm going to have that time and space and I don't feel out of alignment. And it's not like I'm living in two different worlds. Like it allows harmony to exist and seasons to exist.
I love that, man. What is your habits or rituals that you feel set you up for success every day?
1,000%. And it is the most important one. And it is my stillness practice every single day. I am bullish on it. I require every client to do it. I will like lock you in handcuffs and make you do it. And it is 100% just that. Every morning, the first thing I do before I let anything in the world touch me, no phone, no person, no anything, is I go sit in my backyard or anywhere I want, and I sit in silence and stillness for just 15 minutes minimum. And that means no notebook, no notepad, no taking notes, try to think of anything. Nope, there's a bird. Oh, there's the grass. Oh, I'm cold. Oh, just to be. And then the moment I'm done with that, I write down whatever my intentions are for the day. And then I'd have that practice like 3 times a day minimum. And I'm going to tell you that the biggest challenge that people have is they go copy people's morning routines, but they don't look at the context of it. And what you will see is there is a direct correlation between the amount of success that somebody has and the amount of time they spend alone. That is where the magic happens. And a shaman said it to me so well. And he said, your challenge is you've never been quiet enough to hear God's whispers.
Wow.
And then it hit me. And so that's why I obsess about books like The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter and The Wedge by Scott Carney, because it's how you can create more of that space and train more of that space to connect to your intuition and your creativity, both in your emotions, both in your ideas, both in how you lead the team, both in how you attack the day.
Right.
Because you're flexing the muscle of being in a relationship with yourself, and instead of allowing yourself to be a reaction to everything around you, and then never having that space. And that is the number one, hands down, most powerful one. And then my joke is, if you ever want to see a room full of millionaires scramble like cockroaches, get them to commit to a 10-minute practice that you promise them will help them in their business and life, and say yes, and then assign this practice to them to go outside for 10 minutes alone with no phone, no music, and they're not allowed to write anything down, think about anything. They just have to try to be still. And you will see, well, what about this? Can I do this? Is it okay if I do? I'm like, it was simple. And none of them want to do it because we never sit still. We go to the Instagram, we go to the email, we go to the next thing, we'll go to the laundry, we'll go to the couch, we'll go to Netflix, we'll go to YouTube, we'll go everywhere to avoid the one place and the one person we're guaranteed to spend the rest of our life with. And it's ourselves.
Yeah. That's powerful, man.
So that's why.
Do you meditate?
I do in some shape or form every day. Sometimes that's considered meditation. I do a lot of walking meditation. I do breath work in my shower routine every day. So every morning when I get in the shower, the first thing I do is sit Indian style on the floor, and I have a 3-song playlist that I made depending on my mood that day. So I have a mindset day, an emotional day, again, in my body day. And then I do breath work through those songs, shower, cold myself out, and then, I get out. And then even between calls, like when we get off this, like I'll go do a release. I have a red light over there. I'll turn it on for 5 minutes and I'll do like a breath work, clear the space, set my intention for the next call. And so I kind of incorporate it into my day across the board.
That's awesome, man. I really love that. And not enough people give themselves that routine and set themselves up. And it's so crazy because they wonder why their circumstances in their lives are not panning out the way they want it to be, but they don't look at their daily routines, habits, the lack of them. All right. So last but not least here. So what and where, so where can people find you? Give us your socials before you plug yourself.
Yeah. So you're either in one of two buckets: that I belong in a straitjacket and you don't want to hear from me again, which you would be correct. And that's totally fine. I appreciate you. I'll be here when you come back. Or person number two is you're like, all right, I might be interested to see what this brand of tattooed pink looks like. And so the best place to find me is my website. It's mindofgeorge.com, mindofgeorge.com. My podcast is linked there. All of our resources there. It's all free. Anything mindset, customer journey, relationships, some of the best experts in the world, they're all there. And then you can also DM me on Instagram if you want, which is It's George Bryant, and the It's is included.
Which I'm going to highly, highly suggest if you were listening to this and you got to this point, go look George up. See what he's about, man. This guy's real, and I'm grateful, man. I think time is one asset we don't get back, so you spending it here with us today means the absolute world to me, man. I'm excited to have our in-person.
Me too. We'll get that on the books.
That's going to happen this year, dude. But I'm grateful for you, man, and have a great rest of your day, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Perfect timing.